In early 1921, the Miller family from Kirayutsa. Which way is Kirayutsa? From Kirayutsa, got on the SS Rotterdam with little Imre, Gisela, and Henriette. And Anyuka, that's what Grandma was called, they got on the boat. I don't know how long it took them, but to imagine going across the ocean with 3 little kids, and my grandma was seasick. She didn't have a good ride. She was pregnant. So my father, Joe, the 4th of 6 siblings, he was made on Kirayutsa. Benny. Your father was made in Budapest, but moved to New York, right?
Yeah. Right.
I was made in New York, I moved to Budapest. People ask me a lot, and how come you live here? You're from New York, you could live in California. I'm happy to live here. So they got on the boat and wound up in New York. And my father was born November of 2021, and a few years ago on his 100th anniversary, and I urge you to do this with your loved ones. We had a Zoom meeting, 36 people came from all over the world, and we talked about my dad. And I'd like to talk to my dad now, but I can't, so I'd like to tell you about my dad. So I'd like to use this chair. No, I don't have. Yeah, I need a warm chair. Oh, wait. They were the first ones here, so that was the warmest chair. Excuse me, are you laughing with me or are you laughing at me?
Absolutely with you.
I lived in Canada 5 wonderful years, and I make a fool of myself in my children's show. And all the kids are laughing, and I look at this little kid and I said, "Hey, kid, you laughing with me or you laughing at me?" He goes, "Relax, mister, I'm laughing near you." I love the Canadians. Eh? I saw you laughing too. Oh yeah, thank you. Wait, where was it? Oh, Joe, yes. So, this was Joe's suitcase from World War II. Sorry I brought it up. We were the good guys, you were the bad guys. Now we're all guys together. And let me share with you the first memory I have of Joe. I always called him Owie when I was a little kid, and I called him Joe. And many people, does anybody call their father or mother by their first name? Hungarians don't do that. You do, yeah? Chilla, your mom or your dad? And people say, "How? That's disrespectful." Are you serious? I tell him, I give him both kidneys if he needed them. I loved him so much. So the first memory I have of Joe is I was 2, maybe 3, because then we moved to the Bronx. You see the subway up there. Anyway, Joe would come home like after work, like 6 o'clock. Americans do 9 to 5, right? And as a little kid, I had an internal clock. I knew when Joe was coming home. And in those days, there was a little crack under the door. And you remember when you go like this? Right? And I used to play that, and I used to know when Joe was coming. And I used to look at all the people and listen to the sounds. We were on the, can I have a little bit of, a little slower? Okay, great. A little, I like the little small heels. Give me some heel. That's toe. Give me heel. Give me heel toe. And give me an all the sounds you hear on the stairway. And I would see the guy with the gray and boomy shoes. I see the woman with the brown boots. And I knew when Joe was coming. Joe's an interesting fellow. He, any of you like rock and roll? Salsa? Reggae?
No.
Classical?
Yeah.
If you like classical, please don't raise your hand.
Everybody likes
You
love.
better be laughing near me. Okay, so Joe, well, Anyuka started it, right here on Kirayutsa. And she would, in the morning, she would take her teeth from the jar and the glass in the water, and then she'd, I just had my teeth cleaned. And she'd take her fingers, where all her fingers are like my basketball finger, right? And she'd do this. Don't shake that hand, it got bacteria. Okay, so, everybody's comfortable? We're planning next time to have projection, but now it's called low tech. Right? You know about that, right? So we don't always have to have, okay, we have engineers here, we have doctors here. So this is the family. Was there a president of Hungary recently named Adar? Huh? Ader. Okay, so that was my family's name when they left Kirayutsa. And when they got to New York, there was the Statue of Liberty Island, and then there's Ellis Island, where you check in to the registration. Now I could even just punch in my grandparents' name, and the information comes, what boat, what time they came in. And so my grandfather, Abraham Ader, he's waiting online to check in, and he sees the guard named Miller. Generic name, the Manhattan telephone book, when we had telephone books, this many pages of Miller. And he goes, Miller, great, so he changed his name. So anyway, this is Henriette, Gisela, Imre, and this is my father. Isn't he so cute? My brother's oldest son's picture, you can't tell the difference. My son's baby picture, you can't tell the difference if it's my brother. Don't start thinking that stuff. Okay, and this is Julius. So a bunch of Hungarian names, right? And then there's David, he's the last man standing, 98 and a half. I just spoke to him last week. So he's doing okay. Just his eyesight, macular degeneration, and his hearing. So anyway, just for the note, Imre became Irving, Americanizing names. Gisela became Gussie, and Henriette became Harriet. Okay? Instead of Yoji, my father was Yoji Joey. I called him Joe. I love the guy. Okay. So, I was Anybody have a sibling? If you have you have a sibling? Okay, anybody who's the older? Oh, just there's a few of us here, I see, huh? Well, I was the older sibling, and I'm a player. I've always been a player. I was 5, and my mom was pregnant, and it was touch and go because before me, she lost the baby, and she always told me I was so wonderful she had to try twice. And so she had to go into the hospital 5 days before. And now I'm here alone with my father. I never was alone with my father. Were you ever alone with your father? Yes. I was just little. I was a little guy, right, you know? Okay, and, but Shadi Nani was across the hall, and Claudia Nani was downstairs. They were all from Budapest. They were moved to New York. And I'm waiting, and we're watching television. Americans do that, you know. It's Sunday evening, and Lassie. Everybody knows Lassie. Lassie is non-political. And it was black and white in the how many of you remember black and white TV when they had no choice? Right. So we're watching TV with my father, always Lassie. Jeff Miller was the little boy, and it was the Miller family, and the dog Lassie, and they had a little farm, and everything was just fine, and if it wasn't, Lassie took care of it. All right, so the phone rings, it's the hospital. My father says, oh, I gotta go get the baby. The baby's coming. They call me to the hospital. I said, great. So he goes into Shadi Nani, and she comes in, and Joe puts on his coat, and he opens up the door, and I say, and he looks at me before he leaves. He says, so, you still want a sister? I said, He says, you gotta hurry. I gotta go now. Make up your mind now. I said, no, I want a brother. Because I figure, you know, brothers, you know what I mean? And he says, okay. He closes the door, and he opens the door. He says, we need a name. What name do you want? And I'm watching Lassie. I'm Miller. The kid's Jeff Miller. Jeff Miller. That's my brother. So it wasn't planned. My father is Joe. His younger brother is Julius. Okay. My father's oldest son is Jay. My brother is Jeff. My son is Josh. My brother's oldest son is Jason. And very often when I was a young fool, they would call me a jerk. So, isn't that cute? This you should know. Ooh, I used that word. I took a class for 3 days, $600. I had it a long time ago, to not use should, would, could. But anyway, this was colorized. This was a black and white photo, and there was a woman in our building. My mom was friends with everybody. I'll tell you about my mom soon. All right, so lovers. So this is, of course, right after World War II, and a few years after they started to make a family. I am the baby boomer. There was many of us, and we didn't get breastfed because Dr. Benjamin Spock wrote a book. Don't breastfeed. Give him a bottle with a formula and all that stuff, and I have tried to make up for that in my life. Yeah, so mommy and daddy. So, at 6 years old, Joe was selling. Did I bring it? Maybe I didn't. I was selling apples at the subway station. And the pennies he made, I mean, we're talking about the 1920s, the middle, late 1920s, and he's giving the pennies to his mom. So he was a working person. And when I was 13, I was failing Spanish language. So I needed a tutor, and it cost $10 an hour. And at that time, the rent was $31 a month. So I went to my father, and he's always reading the newspaper. Right? He loved to read the newspaper. And I said, Daddy, I need, $10. He says, so what do you expect me to do with it? You got legs? Go get a job. So I started to deliver the New York news. And this is Yankee Stadium, right? You see New York in a black or blue baseball hat everywhere you go in the world. Well, this is for the Bronx, and this is Yankee Stadium. And right here is the subway, like from Urshvezeter, when it goes to Pilango, in the tunnel. That's what happens over here to go to Manhattan. And that's exactly where my mother taught me that you have to give the seat in the bus, in the subway, to old people. And she said to me, I remember her voice, have to give it to the old people because one day you'll be old and you will need it. So that was very important. And there was a question when I was young. Are people, babies, children, naturally prejudiced, racist? And that study said that children, kids, are prone more positive towards white and negative towards dark. But I don't believe that, because right on that subway line, right there was a classical matron, black mother. We called them black then. Now it's African American. And she was smiling, and robust, and rotund. And right next to her, I was sitting over here. Right next to her was the whitest Swedish, Norwegian, blue-eyed, blonde-haired mother with the most gorgeous, wavy, blonde-haired, blue-eyed little girl on her lap. And the black woman's hand was here, and the little girl looked at it with a smile and put her little hand on the black woman's hand. So those researchers, they can't tell me that. So it was a time when I was a kid where sport was everything. And in the late 40s, does this ring a bell? Does anyone have a reference to this? This is Jackie Robinson. You ever watch a basketball game? Watch American football game? You see a few white people? Right? That's Jackie Robinson. He was the first black person in any major sport in America in the late 1940s. So he broke the color line, and for me, as a kid, it was all around me. My mother was a freedom rider. Martin Luther King, Catholic priests, rabbis went down to the South and rode the buses. Maybe you probably saw that in film clips. So my mother was riding the buses. My father was organizing unions in America, which gave the working class a really good life. And over my lifetime, the unions have faded away. So on my Little League team, anybody played on a club in any sport? Hungarians love sport on a club. How many of you played in a club, some kind of sport? Come on, tennis? You did your own thing? What, right? So on my team, the first baseman, I'm not going to explain baseball to you right now, but the first baseman, Billy Walsh, he was a heavy guy. His father and mother were from Ireland. Stevie Rothman his grandparents were from Poland. Kalabasa, Carlito, we called him, his parents were from Puerto Rico. And Gerd Wiesner, his grandmother was from Germany. And my grandma, Anyuka, was from Poland in 1891, but in 1951, it was given to Ukraine. So now it's the Ukraine. But when I went to Warsaw to get her documents, birth documents, the people said, she is Polish. She was born in Poland. Boom, even though it's not Poland today. So I was bathing like the Niagara Falls with integration. It was Martin Luther King's movement, and unfortunately we know what happened to him. So what can I do? So in the mid-90s is the only time that I spent in the USA when my parents were ill and died. And I was invited to go to Alabama, deep South Alabama, where you saw all those movies where they hang people and kill people, right? That's real, right? And I was, can you find me in the picture? Right? So here's the deal, right? I did a show in New York City, Lincoln Center. There were like 10,000 people. And a lot of the people I bring on my stage, and it might happen to you, were different people of New York. And when the people in Alabama saw, oh, look at this guy, does work with all different colors, let's bring him to Alabama. And so this was the young kids' school. I parked over here, and I had to go through the high school. Do you know what running the gauntlet is? 2 lines of fighters, maybe with sticks, and one person has to get through it, right, while they beat you. You see this in silly movies, right? So anyway, I had to run the gauntlet. And, hey, Whitey, any kids here? No. Okay. Can I be Bronx and use the name nasty? Okay, motherfucker, what are you doing here? We don't need you here. Yeah, why? I won't even go really bad stuff. So finally I go to work, and this is my first class. The next day I park in the parking lot, and oh, good morning, Mr. Miller. How are you today? Nice to see you again. Just give me one day. It was so amazing. And the last day of my work there, my picture was on the front page of the newspaper, Moundville. Look at it, Moundville, Alabama, very interesting place. And mine comes to Moundville, and the other was the head of the school district, big, heavy white guy, was being taken away in handcuffs because of the racism in giving people higher positions in the school district, even in mid-90s. So it really doesn't end. So Joe left me this when I was a little kid, and we lived in a little apartment in Manhattan. I had so many toys. Yes. In the one room we lived in, we all slept in the same room, my mommy, daddy, and me. In the drawer were these 3 things: a harmonica, and I always wanted to learn how to play, but somehow my tongue doesn't work. Same thing when I first came to Hungary in 1997, and with that, I just can't get it. 27 years I don't speak the language. Been married to 3 Hungarian women. And divorced. I think it's because the language is just so sexy. My first wife, Rita, since we're talking about that. Her mother, Margit, was from Kishvarda. So in the late 30s, beginning 40s, last century, she came to America, and then I met them when I was a teenager, and I come into Rita's house for the first time, and as soon as you open the door, there's the table, and they're sitting around the table, drinking a glass tea. Not a cup of tea, a glass tea, and it's hot, and they hold it by the top of it, and right? So they're from Kishvarda. And Barbara and Rita and Margit are at the table as I walk in and I sit down. And Margit says to Barbara, "So, Barbara, if it's a boy, what are you gonna call it?" "David, Mommy." "Oh, David. David is a very nice name. I like David." "And if it's a girl?" "Wendy, Mama." "Oh, Wendy. Wendy is a very..." "No, Mama, Wendy." "Wendy, I like it very..." She called her Debbie. Margit taught me how to diaper my baby. Yes, in the 60s, in 71 he was born, the crazy 60s and 70s. I guess I could say it now. I was able to diaper my baby with one hand, and some people use it for medicinal purposes. I did for years. Okay, so, so there was this is a bayonet, and it shows all the places my father was in World War II. And the deck of cards was not a regular deck of cards. They called it a French deck of cards. And so it was very interesting. Saturday mornings when my parents were sleeping, I would play with these toys. Okay. A secret. Only in the 1980s did my father and his brother Julius tell me this, because it was top secret military. My father and his brother were radio men on ships in the Pacific. And they were 2 of 22 radio men. Because my uncle told me this years later when he visited with his wife in Budapest. And we went to not the Bogolyvar, which that other place next to it? Gundels, thank you. Don't go anywhere. He was trained to break the Enigma code, the U-boat, and change my father. I know. What about your mother? So, did you ever feel a texture? Smell a wafting aroma? Hear a sound that transports you back and back to another time, to another place. This was my mother's shawl. My Aunt Ruthie, her younger sister, who's 97, gave it to me many years ago to tell this story. On the Sabbath, which begins Friday night when the sun goes down and ends Saturday also when the sun goes down. And my mom used to light the candles for the Sabbath. Because of fire rules, and I'm very conservative, she would light the candle, she would put the shawl over her head, almost out a few inches, and I would sit there, rapt in attention, watching her do this mystical movements with her hand. Always the same, every week. I was a wild kid. I couldn't sit still, but when my mom lit the candles on the Sabbath, my eyes were wide open. I would watch she closed her eyes and moved her lips, and a tear would float down her freckled cheek. And I watched it as it dripped down her chin. Years later, when I was a father, we were sitting at my mom's dinner table, and that thought came to me as she was, after decades, after a lifetime, still lighting the candles. I said, Mom, what do you think about? What's on your mind when you do this? And she smiled. And she put her hand on my head and said, Tatala. She called me Tatala. Tata is father in Yiddish. Is it in German also? Is German and Yiddish, I get along pretty well to speak. Tatala is little father. Mamala is the daughter, his little daughter. She says, Tatala, I think about our family, our loved ones who've been and gone. And I think about you, my sister, my brothers, their families, my friends, the people I work with. And I think about the people who will be in the future. And I send them love. So, that's your homework. Put out the love. Sylvia. I've had some mystical experiences. My first being, my first job, I was a professional dog walker. And the woman, I would say the old woman, but probably she was my age, as I am now, she was then. And I was a little kid, I was 6, 7, 8, and she gave me her garbage wrapped in newspaper with string. We didn't have plastic in those days. And her little white poodle, and I would walk the poodle and fill out the garbage. And she gave me a nickel for each of my services. And one day we're walking on my street, where there was my building, there was some type of a house of worship, and then the candy store with the ice cream. But the rest of the block was a parking lot where the dogs used to, right? So I'm walking the dog and I notice on a leaf a caterpillar, and I'm looking at it, and the strangest thing, it's doing what caterpillar does, and then it flies away as a butterfly. And that doesn't happen. How does that happen? You have another chair? Hi. Alex. Hi. Thanks for coming. Hi. Have any of you seen a caterpillar in person, live? I know, YouTube, caterpillar, into butterfly. This was my first miracle as a kid. Let me find the next miracle. Old people and little kids always loved me. And I was very close with my grandfather, right? And he came to the US in 1918 and never learned English. But he stayed within the family and his community who had come from Transylvania. So he never learned English. I was the only one who could speak to him in the ancient language of Yiddish. So anyway, he was bigger than life. And at the end of his life, he's in a coma. In New York, I had just gotten married. I was in LA. Because I was so close, the family says, come on, come back. My wife and I was 18, she was 16. We come right to the hospital room, and he's always loud and big and wild guy, and what's this? And there's no hookups, no machines, nothing, he's breathing. I said, what is this? And they said, for 2 weeks he's like this. So I go over to his face, and I give him a little nudge. I didn't do this, I mean just a little nudge, right? And he opens his eyes, he smiles, his usual smile, and he says, Jay, mein Jay, nemech mi rahaim, take me home. Smiles, closes his eyes, and slides over to the next place. So I'm in touch with this. Next time, my Aunt Helen, she was such a wonderful, kind, generous, loving, gentle woman, and she got one of those terrible diseases that she was in the hospice also. And it seems like in my family, I used to attempt to make light of it, but I'm somewhat the maitre d' of death. And my Aunt Helen was in the hospice for a week, and my Uncle Morris, my mother's brother, was there every night. I said, when I came to LA, I said, no, you go home, I'll take over. So for 3 nights, I slept in a chair, and on the morning of the 3rd night, Natalie was the nurse. Jay, Helen has passed. And I get up and I look in the room, and there is her body at the end of the long room by the window, and I see I guess the air and the blood flow stops, and then I saw a wave of energy, spirit, rise up and go into the ceiling. Then at her funeral, I'm the only one of 6 pallbearers to carry the coffin. The coffin, traditionally in my family, is plain pine wood. None of this fancy stuff. And I'm holding the bottom of the casket. And we had to walk 50 meters, not so short. And the slat of wood that I'm holding breaks in my arm. And I'm holding it, and what can I do? It's heavier than, and finally, with some miracle, we got it on that thing, and it went back. So Aunt Helen and I, we have a very close relation. Okay, let me give you another one. All right? I have a great show where I make fun of hip people who go and look for spiritual enlightenment, people who do yoga and Tai Chi, right? And so I have this really funny show. Maybe I'll do a piece for you here. But I'm at the ashram. There's 300 people watching. And after the show, someone comes up to me and says, oh, I see that in 2 weeks you're going to pass by our house. Why don't you stay with us? I say, fine. She is a midwife, nurse, and he is an obstetrician. And great. And my little daughter's a midwife, too. So 2 weeks later, I pull into their beautiful, early American farmhouse. And I park my car and I walk in the house, and the house is 250 years old. It's amazing for me. And the table is wooden slats from 200 years ago. And grandma's there, and the beautiful son and daughter and mommy and daddy. And we have a wonderful dinner. And they say, okay, take your bag and you'll sleep the first door on the right, up the stairs. Great. Take my bag and I go into the room. Beautiful bedroom. And the motif is spring green with little yellow flowers everywhere. On the bedspread, on the curtains, on the wall, on the wallpaper. And they have, everything is made out of wicker, like those beautiful Saturday morning baskets that Hungarians go shopping with. The bed frame is made, the mirror frame around the window is beautiful wicker. And out the window is a nice tree and a courtyard. And I start to hear, and I start to see again, like with my aunt, energy waves. And I step out of the room and the family is there, and I say, yo, what goes on in this room? Oh, 150 babies were born on this bed. This is the birthing room, and right across the street is the hospital. I says, okay, that's wonderful. I'm not going to sleep here. It's all right. I don't feel clean enough, pure enough. And they said the only place is on the bed, on the couch down in the living room. I said, that's fine. They said, the kids get up early. I said, I get up early too. So me and the kids had a great time. Let's see what else I have here. The schoolyard. All this basketball, baseball, football for us kids, and it starts in the schoolyard. Your father ever tell you about the schoolyard? No. Maybe he was too old already when you came. Right? He was 14? How old are you?
I'm 15 now.
15, Benny. Yeah. So the schoolyard, we learn how to deal with people. We learn how to make friends, how to negotiate, how to argue, and how to be healthy and physical, and how to win and how to lose. So I would like to tell you my premier tale of the schoolyard. And it's interesting. One of the folks here came early, and just like a Hungarian mother, she looked at me and she says, "You were heavier last time." I said, yeah. And I said, because of COVID, I started to get more than my 71 kilos. So now I can wear this vest because this was my max 71 kilo vest. Thank you for asking. Okay. In 1974, this is the Bronx Way. I became a teacher and started my career in the South Bronx. Have you ever heard this term, the South Bronx? Yeah, to you, it is probably signifying a dangerous ghetto-type place. Yes, it is. But when I was a kid, it was a district like Józsefváros and Pesterzsébet. No, now the South Bronx now is that term. So in 74, it wasn't so safe. I started teaching. My class was 12 16-year-old sixth graders. You're 15? Yeah. What grade are you in? Eighth. Okay, so these guys are older than you and they're 2 years behind. So the deal in New York City is if you can't read, if you can't do the math, when you're 16, then they'll put you in. When you're 17, they'll put you into another grade. So the kids had enormous difficulties. just to run through. One was a gang leader. Brilliant kid, but a gang leader. The other played in the gospel choir. He played magnificent piano. I went there, but he couldn't read. Another was a woman of the night. And difficult situations for these kids. All right, so Friday afternoon, traditionally when I was a kid, in New York schools, when lunch is over at 1 o'clock, between 1 and 3, when school ends, we can have free time. You can paint, you can play checkers, you can play Monopoly, talk, do your homework, or go outside. So, I'm a player. Let's go outside. Nobody is outside. The weather has just changed. Sort of like last week when that little sneaky spring day, right? And we had basketball, we had jump rope, we had, actually, I'd like to play a game with you guys. Who's a player? Who wants to play? I need 4 people. Benet, thank you. Okay, I won't, all right? I won't, okay? You wrote me, I won't do it. You sure? Oh, you're all the way in the back. Come on up here. Great. Thanks. Okay, pick someone else. Anybody, someone you don't know.
I know her, but I would like him to come.
Ah, yes. And you pick someone, please. So you're over here with Benny. You stay there. Good. Over here. You stay right here. Anna, stand up and look at Benny. Great. And I'm going to put this coin here. And you two give some space between you. Yeah, just move the furniture. And I'll put this coin here, and you could get here and here. Over here. The coin's in the middle. And the object is very simple. You want to hit the coin. Okay, so you get a point if you hit the coin. Okay, so the kids are playing. Go ahead. Go ahead, play. Very good, thank you. And the girls are doing jump rope, right? They're playing other games against the wall, right? There's action in the schoolyard, and only my 12 kids and I are in the schoolyard. Great. So now, keep score. There's a lot of money involved. So now, everybody's happy. The spring sun is shining, a few puffy clouds, and the ball from the basketball goes bouncing down to the other side of the schoolyard. And I run over to get it way down. And as I come back, Jose, the gang leader, hey, Mr. Teacher, the big kids from the high school took the court, and you're the teacher. You got to get them off the court. I love a game. Competition? Me? I says, I got it covered, Jose. So now, the windows of the school start to fill up with faces. The people, it's like a valley, and the big 6th-floor buildings, people are starting to look out the windows. The bus drivers for the children who are special education kids, they're starting to put their hands into the fence. What's going on here? All right, so I go over to I didn't even drink. I'm so excited about the story. Please keep an eye on the story. Sometimes I forget where I am. For years. And I have the ball now, and I go over to the high school kids, and I'm a little short, little skinny guy, and they all giving me the cold shoulder. But I know how to slither, keeping score. I know how to slither, so I slither, and I look at the guy and says, hey, how about this? You know the rules. I'm the teacher. I can tell you to leave the schoolyard. We have it till 3 o'clock. Give it to your brothers and sisters. But I don't think that's fair. This is your schoolyard. This is your neighborhood. How about this? You give me your best player. They're this big. And we'll play one-on-one, 5 baskets. You win, you keep the court. I win, your brothers and sisters keep the court. They give me a few of those. You don't do that to someone from the Bronx. You never do that to someone from the Bronx. I said, okay, so the deal is also to take the ball out. You go to the foul line. You know what the foul line is? And nobody bothers you, and you go, he goes to shoot. So if he makes it, then I could match it. If he misses it, then I make it, I take the ball first. So he goes to shoot. I said, wait. This is your schoolyard. This is your neighborhood. You should take the ball out first. So, still smoke. Bronx guys don't like smoke. Probably Hungarians don't like smoke either. I know, because I come from a Hungarian family. We don't smoke. All right? So anyway, he takes the ball out. He was tall. And he goes right all the time, right? Scores 1, 2, 3. So I move a little right to bother his right arm. He missed the 4th shot. To make a long story short, I scored 5 easy baskets. I became a legend in school. My car was the only car that didn't get keyed, you know, they, or slashed the tires. So that's my schoolyard, my first week of school. So everybody knew who I was. Thank you. Okay, so what's the story? Who won?
We didn't count.
Oh, you didn't count? You did it for fun?
Yeah.
Oh, thanks. Oh, since I'm doing here and there and everywhere, about 7 years ago, I had retired from OkCupid.com and Rendezvous.hu. It was an interesting experience, right? There's some people out there. And I was preparing for a show here. I was putting my stuff in the bag, and it hit me. You ever get these little things that just, an idea that, and it goes? It said, Jay, maybe tonight, doing what you do best, going to the theater, getting on stage, playing, maybe you're gonna, meet somebody in real life, in real time, none of this rendezvous stuff. Although I did meet my second wife on Rendezvous Now. And so I packed my stuff and I come here, and I had decided no more Rendezvous Now, I told you. And I wanted a grandma. She has to be a grandma. And one other thing about specific to female anatomy, but she was a grandma, and she was cute, and she was right over here. She was standing right over here. And, whew. And then I asked Kati, who's the director of this theater, I said, Kati, I wrote her, Kati, can I have Anna's email? That's the way we do it. We ask the friend, you can get it, and the friend gives it to you, then you can use it, right? And so she gives me Anna's, she calls Anna gives it to her, and I email her, comes back. I email her again, it comes back. What the hell, Anna, A-N-N-A, what? 3 N's. It took 3 days to figure out 3 N's. So anyway, I met Anna right over here, and I really didn't prepare to do this, but I'm going to try it. All right? It's a Stevie Wonder song that Tony Bennett does with Mark Anthony, who is from the Bronx, and Mark Anthony, and he was, who's that beautiful actress, singer? Always forget her name. Well, anyway, for once in my life, I have someone who needs me, someone I've needed so long. For once, unafraid, I can go where life leads me, and somehow I know I'll be strong. For once, I can touch what my heart used to dream of long before I knew someone warm like you makes my dreams come true. Yeah. So 3 times I'm married, you two. So 6 times we're married. Right? So never give up, right? Keep going at it, right? And finally, at 68, because I was a hippie, I want to find my soulmate. Is she your soulmate, Attila? Is Chilla, your soulmates? Yes? Yeah, some people are lucky in their youth, they find their soulmate. I was, at 68, she was 67. How much is that together? Doesn't matter. We found each other. I know you want to go home, and there's one more story I want to tell, but I don't remember what story it was. So let me, it was, see here. My hippie days. You can't leave without that. A few years ago was the 50th anniversary of the Woodstock Festival. And one of my ex-students became a producer for RTL Club, and he came to my house and he did an interview with me about Woodstock, and it's unfortunately not on the tube anymore. So Woodstock. Yeah, Woodstock, right? So understand the time. There was a war going on. We call it the Vietnamese War, the Vietnam War in America. But I was teaching here a Vietnamese doctor. She was a X-ray oncologist, something like that, right? And she was 4 when she came here with her folks from Vietnam, so she speaks Hungarian better than Vietnamese, and I was teaching her English so she could work somewhere else. And I have to say, oh, the Vietnam War, she goes, and she's this big, but that big. And she goes, no, Jay, not the Vietnam War. Vietnam has had many wars. It's the American War in Vietnam. So I am attempting to retrain my brain and not say the Vietnam War. I always say the American War in Vietnam. Just like I try not to say would, should, or could, right? Don't shoot on me, okay? Right, okay. So when I was 18, there was Lotto, we call it. They put 365 balls, numbers, in the cage, like your Lotto, although, of course, we had February 29th. But that year, it wasn't a leap year. And January 1st, and they pick a number. Oh, number 300. Oh, you know you're not going to go. January 2nd, number 12. Oh, you're in trouble. So if your number was at 150 or above, you're out. You're not going to be called. If it's 150 or below, you're going to be called. And I was 61. You don't forget those things, like where I was when what's his name stepped on the moon, or when OJ, blah, 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 blah. All right. So I have to worry about going to the American War in Vietnam. And you don't mess with the Vietnamese. I know that Genghis Khan came to Hungary, right? The Mongols and the Hungarians. But they couldn't conquer the Vietnamese. So that's how tough those people are. So you don't mess with the Vietnamese. So anyway, I get a letter. Come to the physical. I don't go. Get the letter, come to the physical, I don't go. I live in California, I'm a hippie with long hair, no shoes, and my mother gets a knock on her door in the Bronx. Classic FBI with the trench coats, with the slouch hat, telling my mother, if your son doesn't come to the next physical, we could lock him up. Okay? I'll tell you what my mother told him. She told him, fuck you, drop dead, my son is not going into your army. Right? So anyway, I went to the physical. You don't want the FBI after you. And I had been trained by psychologists, psychiatrists, therapists in how not to be accepted by the US Army. And I'm proud of that. So the first thing that you have to do is you and it's very serious, you go into a phone booth type of thing, and there's a earphones and a little thing when you hear the, right? So I sit down and I pick up the thing and I immediately press the button. And he goes, wait till you hear it. I hear it. He says, let's try again. Okay. He says, don't mess with me. He says, I can sequester you for 2 weeks. That means take me away. I go like this, take me. Okay, get out of here. Then, damn it, I've gotten better over the years. But he gives me this little tiny little cup. I don't know how women do it. All over the floor. Maybe it dripped, so I couldn't. Then is the eye test. Is that letters or numbers? Is that Hebrew? Sri Lankan? So I couldn't see anything. Then is the intelligence tests. My hero of those days, Muhammad Ali, he failed 3. I failed 5. Hey, positive is not always good, negative is not always bad, right? And so they send me up to the top floor where nobody's there, to this huge lecture hall. I'm there alone, but a great view of the harbor, Ellis Island, the Statue of Liberty, and in comes a young soldier. His name is Cohen. I wish I had a camera. He looked like me. So they knew. And he comes like this. JJJ. Don't give me no JJJ shit. JJJ. I tried the same thing. And I lost it, I promise you. I lifted him up off the ground by his chin. He was my size, slammed him against the wall, and I told him, don't ever say you're like me. Look what you did to your life. Now, I don't know if I was strong because I was an athlete, or he just was kind and didn't kill me because he was a soldier. But anyway, here I am. So the last thing is the psychiatrist. The psychiatrist is like 110 years old, with suspenders like this, with those glasses over here, looking at you. And behind him is a frosted window. And only the edges of the window you can see through. So he's starting to ask me. I said, Doc, do you think people could see through walls? He says, what do you mean? And so anyway, I proved that I was a little wacko. And and I went behind him and I started looking through the window to see what's going on. He says, okay, one more year. So anyway, 1 year went on, and Nixon knew he was going to lose, so he stopped the war, and here I am. I wouldn't have gone anyway. We had our bags packed for Canada for 2 years. Canada, then Sweden. Now here I am in Hungary. So I would like to do my signature story. There is a tale that children of my generation, and even my kids, grow up with in America. It's called The Giving Tree by Shel Silverstein. And Shel was an interesting character. He used to write for Playboy and children's books, a real cultural icon in America. And The Giving Tree is a story about a boy and his relation to a tree. And when we choreographed this many years ago, I wrote to Shel and his lawyer, can I use your material to do the show? And within a day, they must have put it in my mailbox, by hand. Don't ever stop it, we'll get you. Okay. So instead of a tree, Peshwater. High in the hills, near a great city, there lived a pond. And every day in the summer months, when it was so very hot, a little boy would come. Oh, you like this story, right? A little boy would come and he'd swim in the water and play games. The boy loved the pond so very much, and the pond was happy. But the boy stayed away, and the pond was sad and lonely. Boy, come, swim in my water, and splash, and let's play games. I'm sorry, said the boy. I'm a teenager now. I need stuff. I need things like the other teenagers have, right? I need a... Can you give me stuff, pond? All I have in my water is my fish. Why don't you catch them and sell them in the market? And the boy spent all of that day and half of the next catching the fish. He caught the teeny-weeniest fish. He caught some middle-sized fish. And he caught, it's a fish story, he caught the biggest fish. And he took them to the market and he sold them for money and bought some nice vines, a nice hat, a nice pond was happy. But the boy again stayed away, and the pond began to cry. Boy, come, swim in my water and splash, and let's play games. Oh, pond, my dear friend, I have a family now. I have a beautiful wife and 2 small children, and we need, pond, we need a... Can you give us... The mountain and the forest is my home. said the boy. Said the pond. Pond, boy, yeah. Said the pond. But what I do have at the depths of my water are shells, and within are precious stones. And if you dive down, you can sell them in the market. And the boy, he swam to the depths of the pond, collected the shells, brought them to the market, and built a beautiful house. Maybe like the house that you live in. And the pond was happy. But the boy stayed away for many, many years. Pond? Please, pond. Give me a sign. I have not the eyes of my youth to find you. And boy, come. Come, boy. And all I have left to give you, my dear friend, is my water. And the boy took big pipes and he sunk them to the depths of the pond. He turned on the great faucet and the water went up into the pipes, down through the valley, into the great city where the people use to shower, to brush, to swim. And the pond was happy. Many, many, many years went by as the boy returned with Nordic walking sticks. Pond, my friend, it has been too long. Please. When you love someone, there is always that time, that moment, to be truthful and honest. In the pond, she said to the boy, when you came to me as a young lad, you splashed and played. Now I am nothing but a mud puddle. When you came as a young boy, you took my fish. There are no more. As a young man, I gave you my precious pearls. There are none. And when the old man realized, he began to cry and cry. And the tears rolled down his face, blink, 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 and hit the mud below, and more he cried. And then the clouds covered up the sky. Can you guys put your hands together, make a fist? Take a deep breath through your nose. Fist together and... And it poured down upon the boy standing in the pond. And as he looked down, he saw that the water was rising and rising. And as he saw his face, his reflection upon the water, he realized that the water had returned to the level of his youth. Could you put your fingers together and put your hands up here together? It's good to take a shower before the show. Fingers together. Good. Deep breath through the nose. This is the yoga part of the show. And as the clouds opened up and the sun shone down upon the boy standing in the pond, the boy loved the pond. And the pond was